The snow had just started to fall when my mother tossed my backpack onto the porch. It landed next to the trash can with a thud, half unzipped, one strap tangled around a broken umbrella. She didn't look at me when she opened the door. She just stared straight ahead, past me, like I was already gone. My father stood behind her, arms crossed, lips pursed so tight I could barely tell if he had a mouth. I remember the way his eyes flicked to the Christmas tree glowing in the living room, then quickly back to the floor. "I'm giving you one chance to walk away and make this easier," my mom said. Her voice was shaking, but not with sadness, with fury. I was 15, barely had a learner's permit. I'd never even kissed anyone. But I'd been caught. Not with drugs, not with stolen money, with a binder under my shirt and a folded copy of a queer youth magazine in my school bag. "You've been lying to us," she hissed, like it was a betrayal on the level of murder. "Sneaking around, dressing like some kind of freak. We raised you better than this." "No, you raised me to be afraid of you," I said quietly. That's when she slapped me. Not hard, just enough to make the silence snap like ice cracking, underfoot. My dad still hadn't said a word. When I turned to him, hoping for something, a flicker of doubt, a question, a memory of me singing in the car as a kid, he just shook his head. "You made your choice," he muttered. I hadn't even realized she'd packed my things. 2 trash bags sat next to the backpack, stuffed with clothes and books. I reached for them, but she kicked one off the porch, and then I heard it, a creak at the top of the stairs, bare feet padding down the steps. "Jordan?" It was Eli. My baby. Brother, 8 years old, hair messy from sleep, holding a stuffed bear by the arm. My mother turned like she'd been burned. "Go back to bed, Eli." "But where's Jordan going?" He looked at me with wide eyes that hadn't been poisoned. "Yet, I'm going away for a while," I whispered. "You'll be back for presents, right?" My jaw clenched. I felt the burn behind my eyes, but I couldn't cry. Not here, not in front of them. "Go upstairs, Eli," she snapped. He jumped and ran back up the stairs. The door slammed behind him. I turned back to the porch. My father was holding the door now, one hand on the knob, the other in his pocket. "You'll figure it out," he said flatly. "You always were independent." I stepped off the porch. The cold bit through my hoodie. I didn't even own a winter coat. As I walked down the street, I heard the lock click behind me, and then the porch light went off. I was 15 years old, kicked out on Christmas Eve. And they didn't call. They didn't chase me. They didn't even look out the window. They just erased me. The first night, I slept behind the gas station on Mill Street, curled up against the brick wall like some stray dog people pretend not to see. I wrapped my hoodie tight around me, but the cold still cut through, sharp and steady. I stared up at the blinking sign that read "Open 24 hours" and thought, maybe if I sit here long enough, someone will remember I exist. But no one did. For weeks, I floated, barely eating, barely speaking. I stayed in the back booth at an all-night diner until the waitress got tired of me hogging the table and handed me an apron instead. Her name was Ms. Evelyn, 62. Hair pinned in a bun, hands always covered in flour from baking pies at home. She never asked what happened. She just said, "You've got eyes like a kid who's had to grow up too fast. We don't throw people like that away here." She paid me cash under the table, gave me leftover cornbread and foil. Some nights, when it snowed too heavy or the cops were sweeping the streets for runaways, she let me sleep on the cot in the back of the bakery she ran next door. "You remind me of my niece," she said once, sipping black coffee. "Family said she was lost. She turned out just fine. You will too." By 17, I'd found a rhythm. Morning shifts at the diner, GED classes at night. I used to stare at the mirror before bed and whisper, "You're not broken. You're just in progress." At 18, Ms. Evelyn helped me co-sign a loan so I could enroll in community college. I chose nursing, not because I wanted to be a hero, but because I knew what it was like to be invisible, in pain, and ignored. That same year, I bought a Xiao, second-hand car, and moved into a studio apartment with peeling linoleum and a broken heater. It was the first time in years I'd had a door that locked behind me. I kept my binder in the drawer next to my textbooks, alongside a worn-out photo of Eli and me at the county fair, him on my shoulders, cotton candy in one hand, the other pointing at the sky. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know if he even remembered me. But every year on Christmas Eve, I lit a candle and left it on the windowsill, just in case. One day, on my way to class, I passed the old neighborhood. The house looked the same, shutters painted navy, blue, porch still creaking, but there was a new car in the driveway, and Christmas lights blinked across the roof. I stopped for a moment. Just a moment. That's when I saw him. Eli, taller now. Leaning against the front door, scrolling through his phone, he looked up, and for a second, our eyes met. His lips parted. My breath caught, and then my mother appeared behind him, pulling him gently back inside. She didn't look at me, just closed the door like nothing had happened, like I was still a ghost, but ghosts don't bleed, and I was very much alive. The message came on a Tuesday morning. I was sipping gas station coffee, reviewing patient notes in the break room at St. Anthony's, when my phone buzzed. It was from an account I didn't recognize, just a woman's name I didn't know. No. Profile picture. Hi, Jordan. Please don't ignore this. Your mother asked me to reach out. It's about your brother. I stared at it for a full minute, heart thudding against my ribs. Your mother. Your brother. I hadn't heard those words out loud in over 12 years. I clicked into the profile. Mutual friends with my aunt, a church secretary from what I could tell, which meant it was real, which meant they knew where to find me. My hands were shaking as I typed back, "What happened to Eli?" The response came fast. "He's in the hospital. Kidney failure. Stage 5. Your parents don't know what else to do." A week later, I met them in the hospital cafeteria. Same fluorescent lighting, same smell of bleach and boiled vegetables. Only this time, I wasn't the patient. I was the possibility. They were sitting at a table near the window. Mom in a stiff beige coat, Dad in a church fundraiser hoodie. They both looked older, smaller somehow. Grayer, but not softer. My mother stood when she saw me. My father didn't. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Jordan," she said, like she'd just pulled the name from a dusty attic. "You look different." "I look like myself," I said flatly. She blinked. My father cleared his throat. "It's about Eli," he said. "He's sick, real sick. They're saying he needs a transplant." Then came the line that made the world tilt. "You're a sibling. Full blood. You might be a match." I stared at him. At both of them. After all these years, after silence, rejection, exile, this was what it took for them to look me in the eye? Mom reached across the table, but I didn't move. She whispered, "You can hate us later. Right now, your brother's dying." I didn't speak, because in that moment I wasn't angry, I was empty, and somehow that felt worse. The tests came back 2 days later. Perfect match, same blood type, compatible markers. The transplant team looked at me like I'd just walked out of a miracle. The surgeon even smiled. "This is rare. You might be the best shot he has." I didn't know how to feel. I hadn't even seen Eli yet. All of this was happening so fast, like I'd stepped into someone else's movie. My mother texted me the next morning, "He's in room 428. He keeps asking about you." When I walked into the room, I barely recognized him. Eli was thin, pale, wires snaking out from beneath his blanket like ivy. But the moment he saw me, his face lit up, like it still remembered me from the backyard swings and bedtime stories. "Jordan?" I nodded. He tried to sit up, but winced. "Thought you were a dream," he whispered. "I've been looking for you, online, for years. They said you ran away." I sat beside him, took his hand. It was warm, but trembling. "I didn't run," I said. "I was pushed." His eyes welled up. "I'm sorry." And just like that, my heart cracked. I didn't expect it, but something inside me softened. For him, for the boy who used to sneak me candy from the pantry, For the one person in that house who never looked away. I stayed for almost an hour. We didn't talk much, just existed, side by side, like siblings, like maybe something could still be salvaged. But later that afternoon, everything changed. I was walking back from the vending machine when I passed the waiting area near ICU. My parents were there, didn't know I was behind the corner. They were talking in hushed, tense voices. "She's going through with it?" Dad asked. "I think so," Mom replied. "At least until the surgery. After that, she can disappear again, for all I care. She won't expect anything, right?" "She's not our daughter anymore, Daniel. She's the donor." I froze. Just like that, the air was gone. My hand crushed the soda cup I was holding. Ice spilled down my wrist, but I didn't feel it. Not daughter, not family, just donor. They hadn't changed, not even a little. I wasn't being invited back. I wasn't being forgiven. I was being harvested. For them, my existence had only one purpose now, to save the son they still loved, using the body of the one they threw away. I stood there for a long time, listening, breathing shallow, not crying, not yet, because crying still meant I cared. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the cot in the nurse's lounge, staring at the ceiling tiles. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. Her voice, flat and certain. "She's not our daughter anymore. She's the donor. The next." Morning, the transplant coordinator pulled me aside for a psychological evaluation. Standard protocol, they said. Just a few questions to make sure I wasn't being pressured. But the woman they sent in wasn't reading from a checklist. Her name was Maya, mid-40s, black hair, gray streaks, calm voice. She looked at me for a long time before she spoke. "They don't usually cry when they say yes," she said gently. I didn't answer. She folded her hands. "You don't have to do this, even if you're a match, even if it would help your brother. If you're not here by your own choice, we don't move forward. That's the law." And suddenly, the words just came pouring out. I told her everything, not just the hallway conversation, but the night I was thrown out, the years on the street, the way I'd watched Eli grow up through a window and couldn't even knock. She listened. No interruptions. Just quiet nods and a box of tissues I refused to touch. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "You've been surviving your whole life. Maybe now's the time to start choosing." I walked out of that room and called Ms. Evelyn. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said, "What do you need?" "Help," I whispered. "And maybe a lawyer." Within 24 hours, I was speaking with an advocate from a legal nonprofit that specializes in medical coercion and estranged family abuse. They'd heard it all before. Parents who cut off their children, then come crawling back when organs are on the line. They connected me with a journalist from a local paper, someone willing to tell the whole story. Someone who understood that this wasn't just about kidneys. It was about identity, dignity, and the right to say no. I sat at my kitchen table, looking at the consent form the hospital had sent, pen in hand, heart pounding, and then I stood up. I didn't sign it. I wasn't going to be their savior, not on their terms, not like this. I wasn't their child when I needed them. They don't get to claim me now. They chose the church. Of course they did. It was the same one that baptized me, the same one that looked the other way when I disappeared, the same one where my mother cried on the pastor's shoulder and said I had lost my way. This time, I wasn't walking in through the side door. I was walking up to a podium, under fluorescent lights, in front of a folding chair audience filled with familiar faces pretending not to remember me. The legal nonprofit I'd connected with had arranged a public forum, a town hall on medical ethics and coercion, a panel of speakers, a quiet little news crew in the back. It wasn't meant to be personal, but for me, it was. I took the microphone with hands that didn't shake. Not anymore. "My name is Jordan," I said, voice steady. "Some of you knew me. Most of you forgot me. I don't blame you. It's easier to forget people when they stop serving a purpose." Murmurs, shifting in seats. I scanned the crowd. There, second row, my mother. Hair neatly, curled pearl earrings, jaw clenched so tight it looked like she might shatter. Next to her, Dad, hands in his lap, staring straight ahead like he could will himself out of the room. I kept going. 12 years ago, I was kicked out of my home on Christmas Eve because of who I am. Not because I stole, not because I used drugs, because I told the truth about myself. I was 15. I slept behind a gas station that night. A beat. No one moved. My parents never called, never checked if I was alive. But last week they reached out, not to say sorry, not to make amends, because my younger brother is dying and I'm a match. I paused. Let that sink in. They wanted my kidney, not my existence, not my story, just the part of me they could use. Someone in the back coughed. The pastor shifted uncomfortably. I didn't come here to ask for sympathy. I came here to tell the truth. Because for people like me, estranged, erased, edited out of the family photo, truth is the only thing we have left. My voice caught for just a second. I love my brother. I wish I could help him. But I will not save people who buried me alive. I won't bleed for those who only remember me when they're desperate. I locked eyes with my mother. She didn't cry. She just looked furious, powerless, small, and for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. They taught me shame. I gave them silence. I never saw Eli again after the town hall, but a few days later, I got a letter. Handwritten, blue ink, no return address. I heard what happened. I don't know what to say. I wish I could make it different. I wish I'd known sooner. I miss you. Maybe one day we can start over. Eli. I sat on the edge of my bed, reading it over and over, fingers trembling. He still remembered. Not just who I was, but who we were. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a small tin box, and drove to the hospital. I didn't go up to his room. I didn't need to. I left the envelope at the nurse's station with his name on it. Inside was a picture I'd carried for over a decade. Us, sitting on the swing set in our old backyard, my arm around his shoulders, both of us covered in popsicle. Stains, tucked behind it was a note. You were the only one who looked back. I couldn't give you a kidney, but I give you this, the truth. I was never gone. I was just surviving. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the lobby, and exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. Outside, the sky was gray, wind curling through my coat, but I didn't feel cold. I walked to my car, drove home, lit the candle on my windowsill like I always did on Christmas Eve. Only this time, it wasn't for someone to find me. It was for the version of me that never stopped hoping. They tried to use me, silence me, bury me, but I wasn't born to be theirs. I was born to be free.